Checking to see if... Just checking no echoes. Great.
Right, guys, let's get started. Right, thank you all very much for joining us tonight. This is an extraordinary meeting of Frome Town Council. I'm Fiona Barrows and I will be chairing this evening's meeting. Just to remind everyone, we have got people online and here in the room. For those in the room, a little housekeeping. The emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room and the assembly point is to the far side of the car park. Toilets are at the end of the corridor on the right, and there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Help serve to a cup of tea or glass of water in this weather. Tonight, Paul will clerk, Laura, Sarah and Rachel will manage the minutes, question board, participant settings and the IT generally. The meeting will be recorded and made available on our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand, and for everyone else, ask questions through the Q&A board. So first on the agenda is apologies for absence. Paul.
Anita Collier, Sarah Butler, Tracy Atchford and Andy Jones.
Great. Can I have someone to propose we accept those? Nick, seconded by Mark. All those in favour? Is that, oh, there is interference on the votes. Okay, unanimous. Right. A declaration of councillors' interests? Does anyone have anything to declare? No? So the next item on the agenda is questions and comments from the public and councillors. Does anyone have anything to say or any questions to ask? Anyone? This is the issue, yeah. Mel.
Why is this an extraordinary council meeting? Was there a deadline that we should have hit?
No, we had, prior to councillors deciding to add another committee and change the meeting's calendar, we had the finance report timetabled for towards the, about now, but we had to change it. So we've had to slot in an extraordinary one to make sure we hit the deadline for the annual return. For next year, oh yeah, I certainly, unless you want to change it all again.
Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, let's move on then to the third item on the agenda, which is for decision year-end financial reports to March 2025, the annual governance and accountability return 24-25, and the proposed earmark reserves at the 1st of the 4th 25. So that's over to Sarah.
Yeah, hi there. So everyone's had the papers. I will whip through the notes and a summary of it. The background to this year's report is that the business team moved over to 4 new bits of software in the year. We moved to Xero for accounting, to Approval Max for purchase orders, Lemon Bookings for town hall hires and Staffology for HR.
Sarah, I can't hear you. Can you hold the microphone a bit closer?
Sorry, yeah. Can you hear me? Beg your pardon. And also, Hannah suffered severe morning sickness. As most of you know, she's pregnant. So she suffered severe morning sickness for some months. So the fact we've got figures that the internal auditor can sign off at all is a minor miracle. A huge appreciation to Becca and Hannah for their success in getting the usual processes completed. Across the council, all teams conducted their work programmes within budget. There were over and underspends, but the end result is a smaller underspend, the smallest of the 6 preceding years, of 113k, 4% of the budget. This will be added to general reserves. Payments over 500 were circulated for approval at this meeting, and all payments over 100 are now published quarterly on our website at the request of the internal auditor. So some of the less than budgeted items in the year. The staff costs overall were less by 6% of the budget. There were 2 events that didn't take place, the cycle and drone events. The new projects and feasibility budget wasn't touched. There was greater income through bank interest, the CCLA account producing higher interest than expected, and we had a bit of interest come in from grounds maintenance work that the Rangers do for Frome medical practice and a couple of other places. That's it. Sorry. There are a few carried forward projects. The Mary Bailey and Victoria Park co-design, the St John's area community engagement, which we just completed on the piece of land there for a lease from Asta for community allotments, the Henley Way steps, the water meadow purchase at Adderwell, and the community woodland works should be able to get underway. The funds for these projects and the general reserves agreed by council to subsidise this year's income have been transferred to the appropriate EMRs. So in the list of EMRs, you'll see the funds for those projects. There were some unbudgeted expenditure in the year. The Christmas lights was 12,000 over budget. This was investment in new lights and wiring plus an extra string across the centre. Town centre investment, we purchased the town centre street sweeper at a cost of 65,000, using 40,000 of the Saxonvale EMR and 25,000 of the general reserve in the end. The original decision by council was to fund the 25,000 from this current year budget, but it made sense to use the surplus instead. That 25,000 will go back to general reserves unless somebody puts in a request. Yard maintenance. So there was a big refurbishment project at the Victoria Park Rangers yard, and half of that was funded from the 2024 budget and half will be funded from the current year's budget. We also replaced the roundhouse at a cost of 19,000. The devolution budget was spent to the tune of 143,000. On market yard toilets were 53, the town centre CCTV was 22, and a new Grillo mower for the open spaces was 50,000. The unspent balance plus the agreed 85,000 from general reserves has been returned to the devolution EMR for use in the 25-26 year. So the general reserves at the beginning of the year were 496. The small surplus of 113 leaves the general reserve sitting at 610. The earmarked reserves on the list that you received total 1,047,000. That leaves our total reserves at 1.6. The internal auditor had a couple of recommendations that we need to get you to approve. Oh, sorry. Sorry, do you want to do that after we've had a quick look?
Yeah, can we, should I just...
I'll skip to the next one. Or did you want to ask questions?
Should we do, let's do questions now and then move on to the other things. I think that's quite a natural break. Anne, go first.
Thank you, Sarah. One thing that you always highlight to us is the state of our general reserves. Are you content that our general reserves are at a healthy balance?
No, should we raise them out? Yes, I am. But we still need to be careful on purchasing. It's not a wild.
Steve.
It's on, yeah. I've got 3 questions, actually. Okay. I'll start with the first one on the general reserve, as soon as it's... so what percentage of our general reserves is it as our overall budget? Or do you not?
What, the 610 from the...
Yeah.
3.6 million budget for this year.
Yeah.
Our precept is 2.7. Can't do that.
About 30-odd%, 20-odd%.
I can't do it in my head, sorry.
Right. And what is the guidelines for that? It just seems an awful lot of money to me.
What's the guide? Well, actually,
Yeah.
I think 610 is probably where we should be because the recommendation is 6 months of ordinary expenditure. And if our salaries are about 120 a month, let alone utility bills, we would certainly need the 600,000.
Right. 2 other questions, if you don't mind. Can I?
Yeah,
carry on. You mentioned that our underspend has allowed us for 6 years. Is that
Yeah.
because we're getting better at budgeting, or is it because we're just spending a lot of money?
I think we're hitting the pressures of a higher expenditure, particularly from devolution. So open spaces has been rattling through expenditure, but have managed to make savings, so came in under budget for their department.
Okay. And finally, the items that are being carried forward,
Yes.
is there a good chance that they'll actually happen in 25, 26, or are they?
I would say absolutely. Let's just whip back to them.
Or they just get carried forward ad for an item year on year on year, and it's just money that's never
The
going to be
items that are
spent?
carried forward, the Mary Bailey and Victoria Park co-design, I'm fairly sure is in plan. Rob is online if he wanted to say anything. The Henley Way steps, I know the designs have
that's
almost
done,
finalised.
isn't it?
The water meadow has been completed today, and
Oh, excellent, brilliant.
and the woodland works, the space is now vacated. and
Okay,
has been
great,
allowed.
thank you.
Carla, you're next.
Hey, thank you. It's about the earmarked reserves. The school streets, 125,000. I assume that's for uncompleted works.
Yes.
Considering the scheme, the trial should end in September, October. I'm just wondering not whether they'll actually do the works by then, but assuming they don't, in theory, what then happens to that money? Is it already given to us from Department of Transport and we then keep it, or do we have to then use it in a similar
I'm
manner?
fairly sure it's not ours to use, but I'm just, Peter is online. He may not be by his computer. He may be waiting for the later conversation, but I'm asking him to unmute and he's not responding. So we'd have to ask Peter and come back to
No worries.
But
Yeah.
It's not our money to use on anything else. It came from the Department of Transport through Sustrans.
But if we were to use it also on active travel, we could ask
I
Peter.
suspect we would have
Yeah.
to go back through Sustrans
Okay.
and the Department of Transport.
Yeah, thank you.
It would also be good to know whether that's for sort of what it was, is that the capital works that haven't been fully carried out yet? I think it would be good to just get a bit more information about that.
Peter is now unmuted. Peter, do you have anything to add?
Hi, Sarah. Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
My understanding is that the construction of the Safer School Streets is now completed. There is a snagging process that is currently going on. And there's also a road safety audit which is due to be conducted in the very near future. Now, out of that might come the need for further works. If, in the view of Somerset Council, the work that has been done so far doesn't meet their standards from a road safety point of view. But we think that the risk is relatively small. And so I think I'm right in saying that the monies that are currently held in the EMR are there as a contingency rather than to deliver any further construction work. There is one other factor for us to bear in mind, which is that if at some point later in the year, the view is that the experimental traffic regulation order should cease, then we may need to reinstate certain parts of the streets. So, for example, it may be necessary to remove signage that currently indicates that there are timed restrictions within the school streets, or it may be necessary for us to restore streets that were previously 30 miles per hour speed limit, but are now, by virtue of the scheme, 20 miles per hour. But we won't know about that, of course, until later in the year when a decision is taken about whether the scheme continues. So I think just to wrap all of that up, my understanding is that what is in the EMR is primarily there as a contingency. I hope that helps.
Carla?
Just a follow-up question. So if if there was any of that left, could it in theory be used for part of the original design, which was the crossing at Broadway, which we know that we're also lobbying for?
I
Theory be
don't,
used for that?
sorry, I don't think that that was actually part of the original design that was agreed by Somerset Council.
No, it wasn't, though. We got funding for that separately. It wasn't
Yeah.
part of the initial school street scheme. Peter's right.
You're right, it was the phase 2.
Should we ask Peter to sort of do some research into what the restrictions and what we could do with that, what will happen to that funding, and come back to us over email? Is that
Of
okay,
course,
Peter?
yes. So I'll attend to that when I'm back from holiday next week, and certainly try and clarify what restrictions are in place in terms of how we might be able to use that funding.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay.
Any other questions on the earmarked reserves, general reserves, and what we've discussed so far? Yes. Great. Do you want to continue, Sarah?
Sure. So the internal auditor had 2 recommendations, and that we ask Council to ratify the Oversight Committee's approval of the internal controls of the Council and the Council's risk register. And we ask the Council to improve the document that you saw with the bank signatories. There are no changes to be made on the bank mandates. And to note the table that was circulated with the papers.
Great. Is everyone happy to take them both at the same time? Yes, Carla. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the right moment to ask it, but in terms of the bank accounts that we're currently using,
Yeah.
because I see the first one where we've got most of our money is Barclays, whereas there are...
We try to keep that as low as possible. In just at the year end, it was higher than it usually is. Most of our money is usually in CCLA or Charities Bank or Triodos or Unity Trust. So we try and spread our savings through the more ethical banks. And at the moment, we stay with Barclays because they have the functionality for multi-backs transactions, whereas Unity Trust still don't. And we've been asking them frequently every 6 months whether they will develop that facility. And if they do, we will move to them.
And Triodos doesn't either.
Nope, Triodos doesn't. I don't think Handelsbanken weren't interested in us at that time. It was very expensive. Yeah.
It's something that has been discussed at a previous oversight.
I don't mind being challenged on it and reminded,
Yeah.
especially if you haven't heard it before. Yeah, that's fine. We do keep looking.
I think as a council, we would all like to not bank with Barclays, and I think as soon as there was an opportunity to move, I think we'd want to take it. Okay, so should we go back to those recommendations unless there's any other questions on that? Can I have is it 1 and 2? Yeah, so it's just what's up on the screen. So Anne is proposing, Philip is seconding. All those in favour? Unanimous, great. Do you want to continue, Sarah?
Yeah, I was just going to say a brief word about the Band 5. It gets mentioned from time to time. This is a chart of the Band 5 rates across Somerset.
Band D.
Band D. Band D rates across Somerset. Frome is approximately in the middle of the scale, but how relevant it is depends on the devolution services that each of the towns undertake. So we know Bridgewater has a vast number of responsibilities. We don't know the detail of other towns, so it's not easy to compare. That's the relevance. The overall message is that we're in a good position to take on the agreed extra services from Somerset, which are the 56 new open spaces and play areas, the quay centre, the weekly markets and the toilet block, and paying towards the town's centre CCTV system. And we need to maintain firm procurement processes to ensure spending stays within budget so we get the best value for money. So before we go on to approval of the AGAR, are there any other questions?
Can I also just add, because I don't think it's been said publicly, we do now own those 56 open spaces. They were transferred.
No, they haven't been transferred yet. The legal work is still ongoing.
Key centre has been. Okay. Okay, so we're
Yes, we've got an interim management agreement on them. And Jonathan Stevens from Somerset kindly sent us an email giving us permission to hold events on the lands. So the communities team can go out and do some engagement without having to ask permission every time.
And the key centre has been transferred.
The key centre has been transferred in the freehold and the lease, yes.
We now have the market rights and charter. Yes.
but we don't yet have the market yard toilets, and that's something we've been chasing. We told Somerset that if we were going to have to refurbish them at potentially a cost of between 160 and 200,000, we would want a return of that money if they wanted the building back, and that's the sticking point. They had agreed to give us the 25-year lease on the block with the land between it and the loop-de-loop, include the loop-de-loop and the land down the side of the library, but none of that has been progressed yet. Despite chasing, it was supposed to go to a meeting last Friday. We don't know what the outcome was, and we have chased.
Great. Maybe we can get an update on the market loos at council meeting in the future. Soon. 2nd of July, brilliant. Great. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, so the AGAR is the Annual Governance and Accountability Return. I'll just read the blurb. The Council's financial statements for the year are presented in the AGAR, known and were circulated with the finance reports to this meeting. It's a statutory process required for Council to approve the accounts and the reserve balances commencing the new financial year. The AGAR has been compiled by Finance Officer Hannah Watts and Consultant Chartered Public Finance Accountant Kate Simpson, checked and approved by me as RFO, and then reviewed by the Internal Auditor. You'll hear more from Kate through the next financial year, as she's going to assist us at a high level, covering some of Hannah's work during her maternity leave. We are also currently advertising for a new part-time administrator, as the first person didn't quite work out. Once councillors are satisfied that they've got no outstanding queries on the accounts, we obtain your decision to approve the AGAR for submission to the government-appointed external auditors for smaller authorities who are PKF Littlejohn. If council approve the AGAR, it's then signed on their behalf by the chair and the clerk, and we place a copy on the website of the Town Hall Notice Board. The exercise of public rights, the dates during which any member of the public can make an appointment to view the council's accounting records this year is Monday the 23rd of June to Friday the 1st of August. So, do you want to move to recommendation?
Yeah, have you got the, if we just,
3?
yeah, so that's the recommendation, and it's just to basically instruct me and Paul to sign a document. Do we have any questions on that before we go to it? Can I just emphasise those dates again? So it was the 23rd of June to the 2nd of August.
The 1st of August.
1st of August. And how does that work?
They get in touch with either myself or Hannah, and we can do a Teams meeting, show the accounts online. It used to be that people could come into the office and look through all the paperwork. That doesn't happen anymore. They could come into the office and look at a computer. We'd show them that way if they asked.
They would email info@Frome.
Or they can telephone. Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions on that? Is everyone happy if we go to a vote? Who would like propose? Yeah, propose. Nick proposed, seconded by Anne. All those in favour? Unanimous. Cool. Should we do this now? You have instructed me. Is it just signature? Yes. Don't my terrible signature. Okay.
Okay.
Ahead of myself. Okay.
So the further recommendations, the important bit here is at number 5, where the chair and the chair signs section 2 of the AGAR. But if you want to have a look at the other recommendations, you may want to take them all at once.
Does anyone have any questions on any of them? Is everyone all right? So this is noting that we have certified the accounting statements fairly represent the financial position. You've instructed the chair and the RFO to sign on councillors' behalf that they have approved the accounting statements, approved the exercise of public rights dates, which is those dates we just read out, approved the revised earmark reserves, note the amount in the general reserves at the start of the financial year, which was 610,000, and approved payments over £100 published on the website and over 500. Yeah? Can I get a proposer for that? Carla, seconded by Philip. All those in favour? Unanimous. Great. Oh, I need to do this. Hold on.
Going to get done by 7:30.
Minute reference. No. Signature required, signed by the chair. Okay. Okay. Right. Next item on the agenda is to approve the financial regulations for 25-26. Sarah.
Yeah. So the revised financial regs were circulated. Oversight Committee has been changed to Operations and Assets Committee throughout. Item 9.4 in the document, due to the less use of cash, staff are enabled to use debit or credit cards for small expenses to be reimbursed by cash where the VAT amount is negligible and couldn't be claimed, such as biscuits or milk for meetings. This will also reduce transaction time and frequency. All the other changes in the document enhance the need for staff to adhere to the procurement processes. That's it.
Any questions?
And milk.
We've made buying biscuits so much easier.
I didn't realise how that
Calm
would come
down.
across.
Almost there. Okay, any questions on that? Any questions? Carla, you sure? Okay. Okay, let's go to recommendation. Can I get a proposer? Mark, seconder, Polly, all those in favour? Unanimous. Brilliant. Right. That's it. That's it. That's 26 minutes. Does that beat your record, Steve? Oh, not quite good. Thank you very much, sir. And also, can we thank, guys, hold on a sec. Can we also thank Rob Holden for the fact that we have just acquired the Adderwell Water Meadow. I can't remember when we voted on that, but it has been a really long process, and that's really exciting. The next meeting will be at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 2nd of July. Guys, will be the 2nd of July here in the Town Hall and on Zoom. I seem to remember that it is sold out. It is sold out. We are ticketing because of a particular item on the agenda, but you will be able to watch it live on our YouTube, and maybe the Vine Tree Pub will show it again. Thank you very much for coming, and have a lovely evening. Thank you. Whew. There you go. All right, guys. There's something about when there's